selected Bible study from Proverbs 20. Proverbs 20, verse 9. Who can say, I have kept my heart pure? I am clean and without sin. Just think on the different dimensions you have in your life. You have your body, that's the first dimension, especially the first dimension with which we interact with the world. And the first limitation is your body. You can only do what your body allows you to do. Then there's a second dimension where he says it's one's emotions, where you feel, and life has an effect on you, and that creates in you the energy to do what you need to do, of what you want to do, or what you must do. We've got this emotional side, is another dimension to our lives. Then we have got this will factor. We want to do something. We desire to live our life. And then there's this family dimension to our lives. There's relationship dimension. There's this work dimension. There are different dimensions in our lives that fill our lives. And the one dimension that we often neglect to our own peril is the religious dimension. Have you ever thought about this? Why do you wear clothes? The only injunction for wearing clothes is a religious one, because it signifies the uniqueness of you being human. Let's take the biological view on life and say that you just evolved from an animal and human beings is simply animals. Well, do animals wear clothes? No. Why do you have a sense of modesty? Why do you have a sense of what is right and what is not right? Why do you have a sense on what is applicable to wear or not to wear and when to wear? Why do you have the sense? The only motivation for that is in the religious dimension. The religious dimension in life is real and we live from it, although in our minds and in our discussions we often neglect it. What makes this religious dimension to life extremely important is it is this religious dimension that helps us to create meaning out of our lives. Without it, what is the reason that you live? If you don't have a reason, you have no religion. Second of all, within our religious dimension, that is what helps us to decide and determine between good and evil, right and wrong, and how to live. People need some sort of guideline outside of themselves. Just think on a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old that is still developing the sense of right and wrong and what to do and when to do it. When an idea comes into the 2-year-old's mind, he simply does it. He simply takes the money. He simply jumps off the bed. That is why they're two, because it's not developed yet. And imagine living your whole life as a 2-year-old with no external guidelines on right and wrong. Think just for a moment on what chaos would be created in the world, except for the one religious dimension that says there is something like good and evil. There is something like right and wrong. There is something that you as an individual need to adhere by in order to live your full potential. Then the religious dimension to your life determines the outcome of your life. What is going to happen after you die? If you say that, well, I am just going to become dust. If you say, well, I am just a process. Now I ate the worms and later the worms will eat me. And there is no sense of the life hereafter. What is the reason for you to live a good life? You see, the religious aspects of our lives answer the most important questions to our lives and directly relates to our sense of happiness, our sense of fulfillment, our sense of, listen, this life that I am living is worthwhile. And the idea that grabs onto this religious dimension to life is that you were created in the image of God. Think for a moment what that means. First of all, it relates to the fact that you are living. It relates to the fact that you have a will. It relates to the fact that you are sharing certain aspects about God. The idea about image of God is like shadow, where from the shadow you can identify the person. And there is certain characteristics of God that you share, but also a shadow is always connected to its object. And in this way, in the religious dimension, you are always connected to God, whether you accept it or not, whether you live it or not. Because you are made in the image of God, you have got this connection with God that calls to your soul, that calls to your heart to worship Him. As an image of God, you are now discovering the uniqueness of being human. The uniqueness of being human lies in this fact that, one, you are a living being and you are a determining being. You do not live just from nature and just from reflexes and just because you can't help it. You have got an impact on your own life and you have got an impact on the world, and you have got the calling from God where He told you and me that we must live in this creation and care for it and guide it so that the potential of the creation and the potential of your life and the potential of the people around you are fulfilled. Because you are an image of God, you are also a relational being. It is from Genesis that God says it is not good for a person to be alone. So there is the social aspect to your life. And the social aspect starts with your relationship of God, where you celebrate your connectedness with Him. But then you are not just connected to God, but God has connected you to other people, connected you in your sense of family, grandparents, parents, children, grandchildren. Think on how the family structure, especially from Genesis work, where everybody lived 3 or 4 generations in the same house. And the values, the truth about God, the truth about life, the wisdom we have created is passed on in this manner. Relational beings. We are in relationship with friends. We are in relationship with those we work with. And how we guide our relationships is a determining factor on the quality of our lives. And that's not all. Because you are the image of God, you are a responsible being. From this one, people tend to move away because they don't like the idea for their life being responsible to anybody else except themselves. But the truth of the matter is, at the end of your life, all of us will be judged by God, and all of us will be responsible for the smallest thing said, responsible for the choices you have made, responsible before God. Once you realize that you are responsible before God, the manner in which you make your choices, the manner in which you do your life really changes. Because you are an image of God, your heart will always long for God. Augustine said it, it is as if his heart were constantly searching until it came to rest once he found God. Because you were created to worship God, and before you are not at this point of worship, you will never have a fulfilled life. And lastly, because you are the image of God, you are called to discipleship. Because the truth about God and the truth about Christ and the truth about salvation and the truth about the kingdom of God and the truth of the gospel is not just meant for you. And because you are in a relationship, not just with God, but also with unbelievers, because you're in a relationship with God and with people who are still on their journey, discovering their own worship, discovering their own potential, discovering their own life in front of Jesus Christ, you are called to discipleship, to journey with them. Don't think on discipleship as I'm already there and I'm pulling you towards me to become more like me. Rather think about discipleship as we are walking along this road of worship. We are walking along this road where we are responsible towards God for how we act and how we live our lives. We are responsible, and this is what is discipleship is. You cannot accept that you are the image of God, unique, relational, responsible, called to worship, and not accept the call to discipleship. Who are the persons that you are walking along to complete their spiritual journey?